constant excellence. Bama bludgeons the Buckeyes, and Saban steps past Paul Bryant with his 7th national championship.
Ladies and gentlemen, the fireworks have gone off. The confetti has flown from the sky as the Alabama Crimson Tide rolled all over those Buckeyes.
Okay. Roll down Tide.
Prof, we said last week, I'm going to give you a little bit of Shannon and a little bit of Dusty Rhodes here. We said last week that this game was going to be a lot closer than this.
Obviously, they lied.
We got bamboozled into believing.
It was closer than it was last week for the Alabama game.
All right. It was competitive.
But
it was very competitive.
But the same thing that I said last week when you try to make the same comparison with Notre Dame.
No. This is different here. So let's give Ohio State some credit. So they really did play a good game in the first quarter. It was the first quarter. The second quarter started off tremendously.
It did.
And then Mac Jones and Devontae Smith said, hey, you remember that time we were sitting last week at that Heisman Trophy presentation? And, we were sitting there and we were like neck and neck,
Yeah.
Let's show them what we do. And they showed out, man. Like, they really showed out. And that's why I said last week that Mac Jones really doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Obviously, I'm still kind of wondering if he's actually a good quarterback, because now it's like you're throwing the ball to Devontae Smith. So now is Devontae Smith making you look great, or are you a good quarterback? Even though Mac Jones put he put the balls in perfect spots every time for Devontae Smith to run after the catch. But I don't know. I wonder about Mac Jones and if he's going to be the guy that is he the guy that really should be, that number one quarterback, or is that hype on Trevor Lawrence really ideal? If you get what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
Like, think about that draft where Patrick Mahomes came out, right? Nobody was thinking about little Patrick from Texas Tech, except for Andy Reid.
I'm so glad you said that.
And maybe some other coaches who are thinking that he was going to slide to the end of the first round or maybe the second round. But Mac Jones, he might be a steal for a team. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him, even though I said last week, Alabama quarterbacks, and you said it as well, they do everything but stay quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yep.
So we're going to see. But, this is all about Devontae Smith, who through 3 quarters prior to practically breaking or fracturing his hand, the joke was that the only person that could stop Devontae Smith yesterday was the medical staff.
And just to add a little bit more context for your Mac Jones argument, even without the 215 yards that Devontae Smith had receiving, he still threw for 250 yards and 2 TDs.
2 TDs. And he was making some really good decisions outside of the strip sack that he got caught up in. He was really, really a really solid quarterback. But let's not take anything away. They also had Najee Harris, who also ran the ball really hard. They were actually joking with him, saying how he and the Alabama Crimson Tide made the Buckeyes defense look suspect. And he said, no, them boys was hitting out there.
Yeah.
Because they were. Ohio State was definitely, they didn't back down. They didn't quit. It's just Alabama's too much.
Alabama's too good.
Obviously, Ohio State lost their running back after 1 carry. Trey Sermon went down. I didn't know if it was the shoulder or when the way he was holding it, it looked like it might have been his collarbone.
Yep.
But I'm hoping that he can bounce back. I'm not sure if he's a senior or not, but I'm hoping that he can bounce back.
Yeah. And actually, another person from Alabama we didn't talk about, Jalen Waddell, who came back from a fractured.
So that. What do you think about that?
Ankle. So that one became a hot topic because he had.
Well, it's not. It's not like when Marshall was carrying freaking. Oh God, I just draw a blank. Oh my God. Byron Leftwich down the field when his ankle was busted up. It wasn't like that. It was like, here's a guy. He really didn't have to play.
Nope.
He really didn't have to play. They didn't need him. He's a young guy, and I think everybody on social media was telling him to kind of chill. I mean, he caught one pass in the first half, and you could see that he was, obviously
100% into the game with 3 receptions for 34 yards.
Yeah, and I like what they did at the end of the game with the center, who also was out, and he couldn't play, and they let him snap the ball to actually do the last kneel down, which I thought was pretty classy.
Yeah. But a bunch of classy moves that they did. They even had a linebacker coming in at fullback for one of the rushing touchdowns for Najee Harris as well too.
Which is awesome. Yeah, which is awesome. So I was like, to me, I felt like, they had worked hard to get here, and I can't take anything away from them.
No.
But I also can't take anything away from Ohio State, and I know that it didn't look great, but Justin Fields was still hurt. He still had over 200 all-purpose yards, 1 touchdown. He had a couple touchdowns that were maybe called back. Well, 1 touchdown I know for sure was called back.
Yeah, it was called back.
And you could tell he was still favoring those ribs. He was protecting himself. I felt like he protected the ball. They just got
outclassed.
They just got outplayed. I can't even say outcoached. I just feel like they got outplayed. Yeah. I do believe that Steve Sarkisian did call some beautiful plays, but again, when you're calling plays for a guy as dynamic as DeVonta Smith, how much of it is the play calling and how much of it is the playmaking? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and of course, we'll find out once he go up to the next level, the answer to that question. But I mean, at this point, I don't even think we should necessarily speculate it because they won the championship at the end of the day. It really doesn't matter because it's a team thing, what happened Monday night, instead of a individual thing that happened. I know we're really highlighting on just the individual stats and what they've done and the impact they had towards this game, but end of the day, and this kind of what Nick Saban's MO is, which is why he became so dominant in college football. And I believe you put a post out there talking about how it's he's dominating so much it's not that much fun anymore for him.
Yeah, and we said that, and I used the NCAA game because that's exactly what happens. Is like you're playing the dynasty mode, and you get a team. Even if you pick a 1-star team and you're with them for, let's just say, 4 or 5 seasons, you start getting all the recruits that you want. I think after I posted that, I started playing NCAA earlier, and I looked and I was like, dang, the old dynasty that I was playing with, I had NC State, and I'm sitting there with the number 1 overall recruit, and I'm like, okay, I didn't think I was dominating like that, but now that I look at it, I was like, it might be time to go and find another team so I can keep building. But I mean, he's got to be thinking about it. He's got to be getting to that point where it's like, All right.
I mean,
and even the announcers.
He marked his legacy as one of the best college football coaches of all time. He surpassed demigod, according to ESPN. Crimson Tide former coach Bear Bryant for the most titles in just history, not even school, just history. 7 national championships. We had a chance to see Nick Saban be emotional after the game,
right?
Which is something that's rare. Like, we would put him and Bill Belichick kind of hand in hand, like the very stoic, down to business type of thing. But being able to see him show that kind of emotion, the elation towards this title, like you could tell that like this title really meant a lot to him.
And they're friends, so that makes sense. Nick Saban and Bill Belichick are friends, and they actually, obviously coached together in Cleveland.
Yep.
And they went through that whole thing, but they were friends. I think I actually watched a documentary about it, which they, talked about leadership and those type of things. That's why I kept asking. Like, I'm wondering if Nick Saban would consider going back to the NFL for one more ride. Pete Carroll did it. I freaking heard, not a rumor, but I freaking saw somebody posted that they wanted the Eagles to bring back Chip Kelly, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Stupid. I feel like they're just feeling real sour.
Yeah. So
because the Giants,
I would be interested to see if what he does next.
Of course.
Does he just go back to Alabama? Does he hang it up? Obviously, his offensive coordinator is leaving to go to Texas. They're bringing in. I don't know if you had this a final thought, but I apologize. They're bringing in Bill O'Brien, which is really, really an interesting move.
Well, if he's not being the head coach or the GM, I think it's a great move.
Because
he should be nowhere near those two roles ever again.
And maybe that's what it is, because I'm just sitting there like, yikes. But we'll see. He might be fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there's people who, and you said this many a times on the show. There's people who are better off just being a coordinator or like a special teams coach than a head coach or even a GM.
And then there's the vice versa. Also, there are some people who should be head coaches but just never get the opportunity. Which
absolutely.
It looks like this is going to be the year of that coming into fruition, where we have Eric Bieniemy. I'm really hoping that Robert Saleh gets a position, because he's been the defensive coordinator for San Francisco for a long time. But I mean, there's just a lot of coordinators that just didn't get the shot because people like Marvin Lewis kept their jobs for so long.
Oh, hi, Jeff Fisher.
Right, exactly. But we'll see. We're going to see what happens. It was a good game. I watched the entire thing.
Absolutely.
I was happy for those kids, and I was happy for the people on Ohio State who are coming back, who got a chance to get that feel of being in a championship game. And now they're going to remember how the confetti felt raining from the sky and them not being victorious, because that's what champions are for. And the last thing I'll say about this is, listening to a book earlier, the author said sometimes when people say, you have to hold that L, that L for loss, it's like that L has to propel you to get a W in the future.
Yeah, a loss needs to drive you and motivate you, make you hungry,
LeBron,
to want to get that W.
Exactly. So we'll look forward to seeing what Ohio State does next year. A lot of people talk highly of Ryan Day, so we'll see what happens. I mean, he's 23-1 as Ohio State's coach. So we'll see if he can continue his success. But with that, let's take a quick break and let's come back with some more football after this.
Oh my God.
Uh-oh.
Oh my God.
All right, Prof. You're pushing it.
Oh my God. The Cleveland Browns. Oh my God.
Calm down, Rob. Calm down, Rob.
Oh, well, it don't need to be me that need to calm down. It's those Steelers fans that need to calm down.
Hey, you, buddy, what's your name? Stan. Oh, see? I just kicked Stan. Calm down, Sean. Don't tell me to calm down. Nobody tells me that I don't know controversy.
The salt was real throughout the nation Sunday night.
They had more salt than I did when Diggs ruined my season.
Actually, that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. That
is a fair assessment.
Apparently the Browns are going to get clapped.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So, for those that have been living underneath the rock, the talk of the week so far has been about the Cleveland Browns upsetting, air quotes, the Pittsburgh Steelers 48-37, Sunday Night Football, prime time.
Air quotes is I like the fact that you threw that in there, the underdogs, because really the Browns, they've been playing pretty well, and the Steelers have not, which we talked about for the last couple of weeks.
That's the thing that people don't look at. Yes, the Steelers was the champions of their division. They almost didn't win that division.
Exactly. If the Browns didn't have the whole COVID scare and lose to the Jets, we might be having a different conversation.
Or even them losing to the Ravens during Pottygate.
But the Ravens are a good team, which we'll get to. But the Steelers, they barely like this. This team isn't the same team that won. I'm not even gonna say that went undefeated up till 9 games or whatever. I think this is the team that's closer. Let me do that over. This Steelers team isn't the same Steelers team that started off undefeated. This Steelers team is a team that kind of skated by in that midway point where they started winning by 3 points. They weren't running the ball. They weren't really passing too good. And then toward the end of the season, you started to see them lose because it wasn't really working for them. So to me, I think the writing was on the wall. We're seeing the maturation of Baker Mayfield. He's got 2 great running backs. He's got a pretty solid receiver. And they got a great offensive line and defense, which I think people are sleeping on. The writing was on the wall for the Steelers. And I'm hoping that this doesn't spell the end for Mike Tomlin, but a lot of Steeler fans are speculating
are expecting him to get fired. Of course, Marquise Pouncey, who's been the goat of that game as well at the start of the game, pulling Denver Broncos.
Well, it's tough.
I know, and it's rough, and I feel really bad for like a lot of the heat that these players are getting. But this has been a season where inconsistencies led to many people believing that the Steelers were better than their record for some reason. Because all people keep saying is, well, they was up to 11-0, but I watched most of their games. I even watched some.
Right.
They were very also ran, Doc. Their flaws, their chinks in armor, it's been developing since week 5.
But you also have to keep in mind, like, it's a long off season.
Yeah, it's a long season.
It's a long season, but it's a long off season. The off season is pretty long also. Even though it seems short because they go back to, all these involuntary camps and everything. Going through that process of going through a season, winning 12 games, which you're riding high, and then losing early, then going into the offseason early, watching people play, especially if the Browns do get quote unquote clapped.
A bad loss, but Browns are going to get clapped next week, so it's all good.
Then it's going to be like, that should have been us. Now we got to start this whole process over, which why in college football it's easy because like you do this maybe 2 or 3 times and then you move on to the next level. You start getting paid. It's all good. So I don't blame Pouncey. I don't blame Big Ben. Like, they're going to take as much time as they need to decide whether they want to continue to play or not. But to me,
that blame game has been going around. People want Big Ben
the writing was on the wall.
This might actually be Juju's last season because his contract is up after this season is over. So that's something else that might be happening.
Steelers don't pay big money to receivers anyway. That's why, it doesn't matter. But let's move on. They lost. Browns win. Yep. What's the next game?
I still find it funny that, last year people thought that Baker Mayfield was a bust.
Well, again, I think that the writing speaking of the writing being on the wall, it might be time for them to consider moving on from Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe his presence and, that persona, like, get me the ball, maybe that hurts Baker.
I don't know.
Maybe.
We may have to see. I don't know. They didn't have a full season together yet. So let's get to the game that was broadcast on Nickelodeon. Slot time. Chicago Bears falling to the New Orleans Saints, Doc.
21-9 isn't too bad for the Bears. I just think they couldn't get it done. I was wishing and hoping for them. I mean, but ultimately, and we both kind of
nothing offensively happening for them.
What can you do? I mean, not to take away from the Saints, because I've been saying this, and even in the beginning of the season when they spanked us, I think they're a good team.
They are. I mean, and they just got Michael Thomas back,
which is horrible.
And Alvin Kamara definitely had his way on this Chicago defense. Like, when we said that there was a potential for the Bears to beat the Saints, we thought that their defense were legitimately going to step up.
Right.
Like how they done all season. But even their defense let them down.
And shout out to the Saints for also using Deontay Harris.
Yeah, Deontay Harris.
More than Michael Thomas is what I was going to say. Because Deontay Harris is, for those that might not know, is an EFL.
He is.
He actually was on my team for the EFL. So it's one of those guys that, I'm familiar with. But to me, this is one of them situations where the Saints just went out and won the game. It wasn't like a huge game for anyone. They just managed and won.
Yep.
And they're going to go on the next week and hopefully don't do any of this. Hopefully fall flat. Maybe play like the Bears.
So, Doc, what was your thoughts about the Nickelodeon stuff? I didn't know if you had a chance to watch any moments on that.
I saw the highlights. Not the highlights. I saw like the pictures online. I think somebody else mentioned the commentary was kind of weird.
Well, a lot of people really like the commentary. A lot of people really like the graphics, but they said the commentary was really, really like cringeworthy because they're trying to dumb it down for like kids, and it's people who probably haven't really talked about football that much. So,
and that's where it's kind of crazy, and we get that on the regular, people not being able to talk about football in some of these primetime games.
Yep.
And to get it on Nickelodeon is even worse. But, I mean, I credit them for trying, I guess.
Yeah, of course. But Nickelodeon did get that F-bomb drop, though. So that was pretty funny.
Oh, yeah, yikes.
That happened.
But see, that's usually when cameras are up close, not monitoring what's going on. And I mean, I didn't see it, but I'm pretty sure it was probably after.
I'll put it up on a group.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's something crazy. But let's go to the next game.
All right. We have the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans fell to the Ravens. A little bit of revenge, a little bit of just desserts. as the Ravens stomp on the Titans logo, how apropos as the Titans did that to them last year?
So, the Titans, similar to the Steelers, they were riding a wave of, Henry.
Oh, yeah.
And no disrespect to everybody else, because earlier in the season, we were all talking like, hey, Derrick Henry's in, the MVP talk. We were saying maybe Ryan Tannehill should be kind of thrown in there. And don't get me wrong, he's definitely grown as a quarterback. He's definitely not the same quarterback that he was in Miami. He's definitely a better quarterback. AJ Brown is turning into a really, really solid receiver. It's just the Ravens had a plan and they stuck to it the whole game.
The whole game.
And Baltimore had a strategy and they stuck to it the whole game. Offensively.
Yeah. They ate so much clock, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and Lamar Jackson, even though he kept getting stopped, it was like, I'm gonna keep running this ball. And when he broke loose in the first half, I was just like, that's a bad man. That guy, that's a bad man right there. Like, when he ran that long run in the second quarter, I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, like, this is really happening. Like, this is the game that we're in right now, where we have a guy. This isn't college. Like, this is the NFL. And we haven't seen anything like this, obviously, since Vic. We had Vince Young. We had bright spots of RG3. We had, we had a few quarterbacks like that.
Colin Kaepernick.
We had Cap. But something about Lamar makes it so much more exciting. I don't know what it is. It's something about what Lamar does that makes it more exciting. But nonetheless, the Ravens came in with an offensive and defensive plan that was specifically to shut the Titans' run game down and, on the other side, run it down the Titans' throat, which they absolutely did. And I give the credit to the Ravens. The Titans, Derrick Henry was obviously frustrated, which I can understand. But at the end of the day, it's like,
this is the playoffs, and the game is going to become more intense.
Last game of the season.
Literally every game is the last game of the season at this point.
Yeah. So he'll go into the offseason again, hoping to get paid again.
He's going to get
paid. Now the Titans got to see, but are they going to hold this 18-carry, 40-yard performance over his head, even though he ran for 2,000 yards?
Okay. I don't think they're going to hold this one game over his head for that money.
They might be like, hey, you don't show up in the playoffs.
You want me to tell you why? Because it's not the Texans organization. And with that note, we're going to continue on, and we're going to go to Saturday evening. Docs, Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the football team of Washington. As the Buccaneers handled their business 31-23. They got the win.
Yeah, that's more like it. They got the win. They didn't handle any business. I just feel like the Bucs played down to competition. Like, this really should have been we really should have been up by like 2 or 3 scores. And I guess when you look at some of the other games, like the Saints and the Bears, the Browns and the Steelers, even the Titans and the Ravens, everybody kind of kept it close. Like, there was no game that was over like 2 touchdowns. That's the one thing I can say. Everything was, within 10 points, 11 points. So that made me feel better after looking back at the whole weekend of football. But what we saw out of Taylor Heineken, which I've been calling him all weekend, Heineken,
the
hen dog, he showed that he might be the guy that Washington might be able to not build around, but be that potential transitional quarterback. Kind of like they had the kid that wound up going to to Minnesota, and now he's out there in Minnesota. Cousins.
Yep.
Cousins wasn't supposed to be the guy. Like, he was a second or third round pick. Only reason he went in is because RG3 went down and they brought in Cousins.
I thought Cousins was in the same draft as RG3.
They were both drafted by the Redskins. That's why it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
They were both drafted. They were both drafted by the Redskins, but there was no way that Cousins was going to beat out RG3 because RG3 was the number 2 pick of the draft.
Yep.
But RG3 goes down, Cousins goes in. He proves to be a little better. They ride with Cousins. And now we're kind of seeing that all over again, where you had a kid out of college who just can't get right. New regime comes in. We say, hey, we don't like Dwayne Haskins. It's time for him to go. Let's bring in Heineken. And Heineken kind of dominates. He dominated
the righty.
Exactly.
Heineken.
Give me Vaughn.
He wants the righty. The vile
thing. And I think he played pretty well. Tom Brady did pretty good. 22 for 40, 381, 2 touchdowns. Fournette, 93 yards on 19 carries. They ran a couple of nice runs with Antonio Brown and Scotty Miller. I did like the way they kind of mixed in some wide receiver toss and sweeps. And I also enjoyed watching Mike Evans be on the field after last week's knee injury.
Yeah.
The defense was okay at best. Shout out to Lavonte David for finally getting to the playoffs and getting a sack. I know that had to be exciting and thrilling.
Absolutely.
But the rest, if we play like that, we're going to get spanked.
I will actually agree with you. And I hope they take this as motivation to play much more hunger. Like, they need to watch that Browns game and, come in with that same fire.
I agree, because when you look at it, and the Washington football team,
there you go.
They're a good defensive team, and we were still able to really run effectively on them. We were able to pass effectively on them. So we really have to take that energy and really push that forward next week against the Saints.
Absolutely.
But we'll see what happens.
I mean, speaking of not rising up to the occasion, the Seattle Seahawks fell to the LA Rams. Doc, we kept saying week after week, the Rams are a tale of two teams. We have the really, really good Rams that look like world beaters. And we have the bad Rams that lost to the Jets. We got the former.
Yeah, we did.
They made Russell Wilson life an absolute living hell, Doc.
Yeah, to throw an interception on a wide receiver screen was so EFL-like. It just reminded me of EFL. Like, I was like, this is Madden 21 without question. I was so disappointed for Russell. But, I mean, he threw 2 touchdowns, both to DK Metcalf, one coming later on in the game. And shout out to Jared Goff, even though he had a, broken finger, he still went out there, he competed. Cam Akers ran for 131 yards, so that helped.
Big
Cooper
shout
Kupp.
out, and we hope that the Wolf of Wall Street, John Wolford, gets better too, because that was
that was a nasty hit. I hope that he does well, or he recovers as well. But I mean, it was, I hate to say it, but it was good that Jared Goff was in the game, because I think he needs to go through adversity similarly to Carson Wentz, which we'll, obviously get to when we figure out what his future lies, where his future lies. But it's like they need to go through adversity. And I think Jared Goff having to go back in the game and throw with that broken finger, this is going to add character to his career.
Yes.
So I enjoyed the fact that he went in there, but also they have to see what happens with Aaron Donald, because he also got shaken up a little bit.
Yep. I mean,
and
they
gonna
got some pieces that's pretty shook up. Cooper Kupp is also limping as
was
well
hobbling
too.
out there. Yeah.
I mean, they face off against the Green Bay Packers on Saturday, so we got to see what happens.
Which I don't see the Green Bay Packers pulling a Pittsburgh Steelers or anything like that. So
No,
we'll
let me tell you
see.
why, because we still got a pissed off Aaron Rodgers playing.
Yeah, we do. And watch, all of a sudden Aaron Jones has like 5 touchdowns. I'll be so mad. I'll never talk to Aaron Rodgers again.
We're gonna need to clip this part right here to play over for next week, okay?
Yeah. We mark my words. He's gonna probably throw the ball to Aaron Jones the whole time.
That's
just
hilarious.
Inspite me. But the first game of the playoffs.
Yes. To wrap up this super wild card weekend.
Yeah, it was super. Bills versus the Colts. Really good game. Oh my goodness! Like
I really enjoyed this game.
The Bills are really good. I don't know. It's almost like last year we knew that they were good. You know, Josh Allen just didn't mature yet.
He just needed to elevate his game a little bit more.
And honestly, he really needed to settle down a little bit also, because it was like they were winning. All he had to do was just chill until the next episode.
He had to chill. He had to refine a few mechanics.
Right.
Because I was watching a lot of breakdown with a lot of his stuff. And like one thing that, as they were showing me the comparison between like this year and last year, was he added more touch on his passes this year, which helped out tremendously.
And the addition of Stephon Diggs.
Thanks, Bill O'Brien. No,
right.
I'm still going to blame Bill O'Brien by it, but it's fine. Let's also put in Bill O'Brien as well. Why not?
Mike Zimmer, Bill O'Brien. I feel like that's the same. I don't know why they traded him. Like, I get it. They didn't know they were going to get Justin Jefferson, obviously, but Thielen is great, but Thielen and Diggs
was a great
is better.
Duo. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's also another
Diggs is being pro this year. Like, he's been playing lights out. He ruined people's fantasy dreams and made others' fantasies come true.
John got it. You don't know about hard times.
But of course, Buffalo's heading into next week, limping. Of course, they lost Zach Moss.
Yeah,
that was another gruesome injury that had occurred too. But they signed Devontae Freeman,
which is interesting.
I don't know how much burn he'll get, but we'll see.
I mean, they signed him to the practice squad, I guess, just in case. But I mean, he'll most likely be eligible to play, which is pretty awesome.
Yep.
So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, but the Bills defense, though, is still really, really good. It's just that the Colts, they have fight. And they really wanted to try to win this game for Phillip Rivers.
They're not going to understand that. And, Jonathan Taylor played one heck of a season, especially for my fantasy team. But they just couldn't get it done. I don't think they made enough plays. No. I don't know if, Rivers is going to return. I mean, I know he's got like a lot of kids and he probably wants to spend time with them kids. Maybe he'll come back.
Got kids.
Oh, don't go there. Don't go there. I know the NFL doesn't give anything about his kids. But we got 4 games next week: Rams, Packers, Ravens, Bills, Browns, Chiefs, Bucks, Saints. Which I'm kind of surprised that the Bucks and Saints are capping everything off, but I mean,
they kind of want that to be it. But I mean, let's do some quick predictions for these, because I think we kind of did minor predictions last week.
Minor predictions, yeah. First game, Rams versus the Packers. Although I would want the Rams to win, I think we're gonna get Aaron Rodgers versus one of the legends.
I agree. I think the Packers are going to win this game. The Rams are coming in just way too injured, and I don't know if their heart will be big enough to allow them to overcome a pretty healthy Packers defense, who's been playing really, really good to end the season as well.
Yeah. Next game, we have the Ravens versus the Bills. I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to choose the Ravens.
Ooh, I like that.
I think that I think they're going to figure out a way to force, even though he'll be better this year, they're going to figure out a way to force Josh Allen to stay in the pocket, but they're also going to shut down Diggs. I think they're going to try to hold Diggs, and I think they have the personnel to do so.
I can see that. I'm actually going to stick with the Bills. I think they're on a mission this year. I understand why you would think that they're going to try to shut down Stephon Diggs and try to keep Josh Allen in the pocket, but I think his awareness now and the fact that he does check the ball down a lot more this season is going to benefit the Bills, especially to sustain long drives. So I'm going to stick with the Bills. I'm going to stick with my gut with this one.
Gotcha. And on Sunday, we have the Chiefs and the Browns, who apparently are going to get clapped.
Yeah, according to Chase Claypool.
I never knew he was going to. I never knew he was going to be hated like that.
Won the battle, but they're going to lose this war, according to him.
I'm not 100% sure it's going to be like a clapping.
No, I just think that's just him being salty.
Yeah. I mean, although I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns figure out a way to beat the Chiefs. I mean, heck, the Gruden Grinders figured it out earlier in the season. But I think Mahomes is really aching for a repeat. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs.
Back to back. Yeah.
It's going to be it's probably going to be Mahomes.
This is going to be a
it'll be
much
Mahomes.
more closer game than people predict.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stick with the Chiefs, but here's my caveat. The Browns have the ability to win this game.
They really do.
Because the Chiefs' rushing defense isn't as
That's
good.
what I was just thinking. I was thinking the same thing.
So I'm putting that out there right now. If the Browns maintain that run dominance and keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, they can pull the upset or the heist of the century. But I'm sticking with the Chiefs. It's really, really hard to
tough.
That high-powered offense. Like don't take anything that you saw during the regular season as like a litmus test. Like they're really, really good.
Yeah. And finally, the Buccaneers versus the Saints, who go marching in to touchdowns every time they play the Bucs. I don't know. I'm hearing a lot on social media. People keep saying, I'm removing the glasses like that.
Oh, boy.
Third time's a charm.
We only have about 2 more minutes for this segment, so please.
Yeah. Dang it, I'm really hoping that we were sandbagging all these other games. That's the only thing I can think of. Oh, God, we play so bad, but then we play so good. It's so tough. But I honestly expect the Bucs to lose.
Yikes.
I don't believe it, man. I think the secondary is still too young. I like what I'm seeing from Antoine Winfield Jr., but Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, they just don't get the job done, in my opinion. I like Carlton Davis a lot. He's really hungry. He's aggressive. He makes some really, really good plays, but something about our secondary that's just not able to get it done.
I'm going to stick with the Buccaneers. I can't see Tom Brady losing to a division rival 3 times in one season.
But it's not him, though. I mean, did you see the drops that we had? Oh, my God. It was so disrespectful.
I'm going to stick with my gut with this one, too.
I like the gut. I'm hoping that you're right. I'm hoping that you were right.
Before Doc absolutely have an aneurysm, we're going to be right back with more debate amongst friends right after this.
Every week at the end of the show, we like to do something called the 2-minute drill, where we go over stories and headlines that we didn't get a chance to cover during the show. This week, we had the retirement of former 3-time Pro Bowl safety Antoine Bethea, who last won a Super Bowl with the Indianapolis Colts. He retired from the NFL after 14 seasons. His 2019 campaign with the Giants marked the end of a great ride. Prof?
Well, the New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia area can all rejoice as the Philadelphia Eagles part ways with head coach Doug Peterson.
Idiot.
Back to you, Doc.
And that's all we have for this week's show. Be sure to tune in next week as we go over more news, more headlines, and the reads.